I'll tell you, speed it up to like 2018. In the business, I was really, to be honest, I mean, I haven't gone to a therapist, but I probably should have a long time ago, kind of thing. And, they don't really teach us, EQ or IQ or EQ and how to deal with your emotions growing up in school, whatever. But right about 2018, 2019, I made some pivots and moves in the business to kind of reset myself. And I'll never forget, I mentioned this earlier about my wife. And, I'm a firm believer one of the most important decisions that you make is who you spend your time with, especially if someone ever gets married. And a buddy of mine said to me recently, he said, Ken, you outkicked your coverage when you chose to...
Congrats.
To marry Sarah. And I was like, what's that supposed to mean? But I'll tell you, she's been an entrepreneur. She's has her own, businesses she's run, and she does a lot in general, besides being an incredible former student athlete. So give an example. She ran 7 miles this morning before I got up.
Same.
Get up and run. I'm like, how's your run today? Oh, it was good. How far did you run?
Casual.
7 miles. I'm like, oh, okay. I haven't ran 7 miles this week. But she says to me in 2018, and I'll never forget this. And again, you mentioned the word complacency, and I'm human just like everybody else. And I did accomplish a few things up until this point, but I'll never forget the day we were in the house, and I walk out and I look at her, and she knew I needed to do more for the business and do more and kind of put more focused energy into driving growth in the business I'm running. And, she even put like goals and had a goal board and vision boards and stuff in our bathroom, like all these amazing things. And because I was so distracted, I wasn't like connecting, and making the necessary actionable changes. And one time she stopped me dead in my tracks and she goes, "Hey, I need to ask you something." I was like, "What's up, babe?" She said, "So are you going to start doing the things you need to do for the business? Or are you going to tell the boys about the life they could have had in 10 years? Because I'm not." And I remember just standing there for a second and just started bawling. And I looked her in the eyes and I'm like, yeah, I got it.
Wow.
And so, I think about, again, that word complacency. When you have the right people in your life, you have the right people in your corner, they're going to point out things to you when you need it. There's certain moments that have kind of self-corrected things. And then again, a few years later, as the business evolves, we get this opportunity, and a few years later and the energy and you mentioned, being lucky. I'm a firm believer luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. And so, people could say I'm lucky or others are lucky. Well, there's a lot of people that have an opportunity in front of them, and
which is lucky.
And they're just not prepared for it. They're not mature enough quite yet. They're not. And listen, I've been that person, right? Or the preparation is there, and they're in the wrong industry. Yeah, they're in the wrong job.
100%.
Right. So it's like you got to have those meet. If, in my opinion, if you want to create your own luck.
And what's so cool about what you just said about what your wife had said to you.
Not cool, but cool.
What did you say?
Yeah, it's not cool.
Fair enough. The point I'm trying to get at is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I assume that was coming from a place of her knowing what you want and what your ambitions are, not her putting her ambitions or goals or motives on you, right? It was very much so she has listened to you over the years, knows the way that you speak, knows the way what you want to achieve, what legacy you want to leave, and is almost just more so holding you accountable versus telling you this is what you should be doing type of thing. So I think that's an important intricacy to make, because I think that is the best type of partner you could ever have, is one that just simply holds you accountable to what they know that you want, not necessarily what they want for you type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, that's high level leadership, in my opinion. A leader that truly shows up every day to help their people accomplish their goals, not the goals that I have for them.
Yes.
But their true goals, then you're going to find some incredible people that want to, be in your corner, because ultimately great people have dreams, they have goals, and it's not what you want for them, it's what they want for themselves.
Yeah. Second thing I want to pick from that story is, as you're starting to gain success, I want to give more tangible, this is what you might run into type of situations. So as you started to scale and gain success, and when we're starting to hit those phases, what were some things that maybe you ran into that could be something you could say, hey, this is something that you could run into as you start to gain success? Is there anything you could point out that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Don't go off and buy a bunch of houses and a bunch of cars that you don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being 28 years old and driving a Porsche and living in a high-rise condo, it's $500,000, and buying it in 2007 when the market crashed a few years later, and then selling it lower than you bought it for. Like, these are all life lessons that, and listen, timing, I never bought a place before. But I think, and again, it got me away from my roots, and I remember my mom giving me a really hard time about it.
When you were going through purchasing these things, and
buying these things, my mom had never, my parents never. We were okay, but we never, were extravagant and whatever. And for whatever reason, I went through that phase, and I even had a really close friend of mine that kind of said, you just started to change a little bit. And it wasn't really you. And even the last few years, I've hung out with him more, and he's like, man, it's good to see you're back to being you. And I was like, I apologize, but to the point though, is I think people, as they start gaining success and they start, accomplishing things and make a little bit more money than maybe they're used to, they start living a lifestyle that they really don't need to.
Yeah.
They start making purchases or doing, again, for the instant gratification stuff, as opposed to being smart and putting money away and saving, doing things like that. So,
well, and I think at the end of the day, it's a lack of perspective of what the reason that you were able to create the success in the first place. It wasn't, you didn't become a great leader because you wanted a cool car. You became a great leader because you wanted to have influence and help them achieve their goals, like you said.
Right.
That's how the success was created. It wasn't created because you had your own personal intentions for what you're trying to get out of that person, right? So I think it was ultimately exactly what you just said, just getting back to the core of what got you to where you're at. So that's really cool to hear. And I think it's helpful for people.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I think we see it in life all over the place, right? I mean, I just saw something on ESPN about a basketball player that ran into some trouble recently, and again, it's life lessons. You give someone in their early 20s, more income than they've ever dreamed of having. Unfortunately, they don't make all the best decisions with it.
Well, and to the point you just made about having the experience to know what to do with it anyways, right? You were talking about opportunity and
Yeah. And so, so listen, again, I think just kind of back to all the things that we choose to do and all the lessons we learn. I had to go through that, right? I couldn't take it from a mentor. I had people telling me, I had coaches telling me, hey, I would be careful. I wouldn't do this and that, and I wasn't ready. It's like they say the teacher will appear when the student is ready. Right?
That's a great one.
And
that's a great one. I haven't heard that one before. That's good.
Yeah. And I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. And again, I look back on so many times, and when I travel, I love to just sit put on some music or whatever and just think. I'm a big thinker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about some of these moments along the way, and I'm like, oh man, I would have saved myself so much time and not had as much pain. But again, I needed it. So, and I'm grateful for it.
No, that's incredible. Well, I want to get into a little bit about repeating what your processes that you've done, right? So you have a remedy for the successes that you've had professionally, and how much do you correlate that to how you maybe pursue staying healthy, how you maybe pursue your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids? How much of those same habits and rituals that you have for how to be prepared for walking into a meeting with maybe your entire team versus you got to have a big talk with your kids or a big talk with your wife or a number of those things? Do you find that there are similarities in those situations? And is that intentional, if so?
I think early in my career, I didn't realize how valuable it would be as I got older and as I started having a family.
Yeah.
But I just, my number one goal in my life is to be a great dad and a great husband. My number two goal is to be great in business, to take care of my number one, and obviously to take care of my business in general. But for me, not just the amount of coaching opportunities, the amount of one-on-ones I've had, I've studied how to communicate with people. I've studied personalities. I mentioned psychology earlier. Like I've put a lot of time and effort over the last 20 years into that piece of me. And the number one reason is I just don't want to screw up my kids. I want to, in the most important moments, I want to be a dad that can be a chameleon and I can adapt. My kids come in full of emotions and full of energy that's not going to serve them. I need to take a step back, and I've had staff over the years that have done that. And so all that practice, to be honest, on people that I've worked with has prepared me to take care of the boys. It's an interesting way to look at things. But I know that practice is paying off.
Yeah. And you've brought up in a number of different ways, professional development and how you've kind of worked on yourself. Because I think that is exactly where it's transferable to everything else.
100%.
How valuable, because I know you know as well as I do that gets a bad rap sometimes in terms of you just hear the rah-rah talks and stuff. Yeah. How important is that in your life, and to people listening out there, how much has that been a key to what you've been able to do in terms of just self-reflecting and understanding what you did wrong, why it was wrong, how you can fix it in the future? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, to answer your question, vital.
Yeah.
Vital. I feel that, this is level of ability that we all have. And if you want to get and break through to a different level to make a bigger impact or to just improve yourself in whatever you're doing, you have to learn. There's an old saying, you want to be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. And, I take a ton of pride in my personal habits. I take a ton of pride in my self-development. And listen, again, my mom did a very good job of brainwashing me to believe that you can do whatever you put your mind to, honey.
Yeah.
You can be whoever you want to be, and no one else is better than you, right? If you want to accomplish something, then go work for it. The world's not going to hand it to you. You have to go after it, right? And so, I just met a guy named Ryan Holiday. He wrote The Stoic. I don't know if you know that book or not.
Oh, absolutely.
I met him a few days ago.
Wow.
He was
That's
at
incredible.
Our conference.
Cool.
And he wrote The Daily Stoic and the obstacle is your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got both of them delivered last night. I literally came on Amazon yesterday, and I've already read 20 to 30 pages of both the books yesterday. And so I just, again, and maybe there's another guy in my world, Gary, that, is works and supports and coaches me behind the scenes. And I see him in his late 50s, early 60s, and he's such an incredible student of life and the game of business and everything else. And I've always thought to myself, if there's someone in my world that I want to be like, it's like him. And so he's through his example. And I've seen him grow. I've seen him change. And again, I have partners in the business that they've grown kind of like I've grown. And I know how much time they put in their own development. So it's very interesting, but yeah, I spent a ton of time reading books, a ton of time on podcasts. I mean, I don't know if you know what Clubhouse is, but I've jumped on Clubhouse and there's a bunch of people in different industries that I listen to, but I spend, I would say on a daily basis, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours a day working on my own development.
Yeah. I think it keeps you engaged mentally, because at the end of the day, if all your time is focused on ultimately repeating the same processes over and over again, you're going to run out of excitement, right? And if you're learning and engaging in different industries, which could completely flip the way that you view your industry even, right? Because you've talked about how much your industry has reinvented itself over the years. I've talked to a number of people in these interviews where they've talked about how looking at other industries and taking what they're doing and applying it are the people that really are the game changers in that industry, because everybody else is just looking at, so if you're Verizon, what's AT&T doing, right? Not we're Verizon, what is McDonald's, or someone that's completely in a different realm. Yep. What can we bring from that business in order to kind of reinvent ourselves? So I think it's an amazing way to keep you engaged.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. So some of these opportunities I've gotten on calls with, Grant Cardone and some of these guys.
You spoke with Grant Cardone?
I didn't. I was on a call with him. I didn't speak directly to him, but yeah, I mean, he was speaking, then I was speaking. We were speaking to each other.
That's so cool.
But I got a good friend of mine, Barb, who spoke at his 10X event. And she brought me onto her little clubhouse stage or whatever. She runs every Saturday morning, and I told the story and told everything kind of like I'm doing today.
Yeah.
And to your point, but through that, kind of connection, I've then met a few people in the car industry. I've met people in the real estate business. I've met people that are totally outside of the business that I'm in. And the things that they're talking about and how they're looking at the world, how they're addressing, the so-called recession, or how they're looking at their businesses, things they're doing, how they're monetizing their personal brands, how they're doing all this stuff, has made me start thinking at a higher level. And it started me to realize that, hey, I mean, I love the industry I'm in. I love the businessmen. But that reality is what I want to accomplish. It's just going to be a small piece of all the things I want to accomplish and the impact I want to make.
Yeah.
And so, but by getting on calls with these people, and pretty consistently actually with these guys, it's just very interesting to see how they look at things and look at business and kind of what they're doing at the level they're at.
Yeah. I mean, it's been consistent through everything you've talked about, that you've just never stopped learning. You never have. And regardless of just your industry alone, like you said, you're just on a personal basis, you're continuing to stay humble and understand that there are people that know and have done so much more than you have, as I think is so important for everybody. And what you see in the most successful people are the people that still think that they're not even close, which is so crazy to think that the people that 99% of the population look at and are just in awe of everything that they've done are still unsatisfied. And I don't want to, unsatisfied is a tough word, but it's a tough word to say, but they're still looking at everybody else and all the other people that they look up to saying, wow, I wish I could be half as good as them. It's just incredible to see that you still have that perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, again, from being in these rooms, being in these circles of people, that I'm sure you hear the taglines of, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room kind of thing. And I take that to heart. Like I really feel that the only way that I can come through, and again, it's kind of layered back. The deep driver to me is to be a great dad, to be a great husband. And if I really want that to be the best, then I need to learn, to your point, about how to manage all these different entities, how to lead all these different organizations, how to show up in my day. And again, you mentioned health earlier, but I'm a firm believer if you're an entrepreneur or you're in an industry that it's based on you. It's not where you clock in, clock out, and hey, the amount of time you're there doesn't matter, or the amount of effort you put in and the time you're there, there's not a lot of results come from it, or a lot of compensation changes. But if you're in an industry like entrepreneurship, you're in a sales business, where it really depends on how you show up every day. I believe that the only thing you can control is you. So you have to have that on point on a daily basis. And in my opinion, where your head goes, your body follows. And so the mental health, the mental training, the understanding, the learning, to your point about learning new things, you're excited. I mean, I'm 20 years into my industry, and I feel like I'm still just getting started.
You're jacked up about what you're doing just as much as you
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I was driving so I had this trip this past week, and there's someone in my office that I really care about, and he's a young guy. He's first year, a couple years out of college, and young sales guy. He's had some ups and downs lately. And on Saturday night at like 7:00, I sent him a text message. Hey man, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, oh, I'm just heading home. I'm like, hey, do you want to meet me for a beer? Yeah, for sure. And I met him down in, I don't know, Northville or somewhere, and was at a bar and just hanging out. We talked for a little bit of time. But on the way there, I was just like thinking to myself, man, how long am I going to keep doing this? Like, he's a young guy in his 20s, whatever. And one of those overwhelming like feelings of gratitude came over my heart. And I just thought to myself, probably to the day I die, I love serving people. I know that, hey, by me spending an hour with this young man, whether he works for me for the next 20 years, for the next 20 months, I'm going to make a positive impact on him, and he's going to remember me.
Yeah. Maybe one thing you said becomes a mantra for him that he carries for the next decade. It's incredible. It really is. So I want to get into some things that kind of sum up what we're kind of going over here.
Sure.
I want to go back to a lot of people that are going to be watching this are people that are maybe on day one. I tend to see that a lot of people that watch this kind of stuff maybe haven't really taken much action yet or gotten to where they're at, where they want to be. And so if you could give maybe 3 consistent things that maybe are more transferable to all industries or all situations, what are some of the 3 core things that you can attribute to getting started? And this is back to this could be back to your personal development habits, or
Sure.
choosing, like I said, like we talked about, investing in that initial person that you believed in, or you believed in his purpose. What are some things that are consistencies that you can see regardless of what industry you end up pursuing? What might be the best way to get started on things?
So the first thing I would just say is you got to know what you're getting yourself into, right? So no matter what industry that somebody's looking to get started, no matter what company they're looking to start or what career path they're looking to get started, I would just make sure it aligns with your skill sets, right? So there's some people that are in engineering fields that are trying to get into sales. If you feel confident in some of those skill sets, then you really step into and lean into things that you want and start spending time developing yourself. So I would take a second. I'm not one that would jump into things very quickly. But I would, once you think about it, pull the trigger, make a decision. And then when you make that decision, whatever it is you're going to do, whatever entrepreneurial venture you're going to do, play full out would be number 2. Like, don't hold back. I'm the type of person that, hey, we're going to go down swinging if we're going to go down, but you gotta commit. You absolutely got to commit. So again, just for the industry that I'm in, I see people come in and okay, they want to get into sales. When I started in sales, I picked up all the books I could find on sales.
Yeah.
I read the books on sales. I studied the best salespeople in the company. I was super aggressive about
going all in on that,
about
leaving it
thing.
all on the table.
Exactly. And they say in sports, and I'm sure you know this from hockey, like if you go into a tackle or a hit kind of half-ass, you get hurt.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was going into the tackle and I'm going to go through the tackle kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so first I would think about whatever industry or whatever opportunity you're looking at. But once you make the decision, you got to go all in.
Can I add something to that real quick as a question? I think a lot of people are unsure of, it's hard to say this, but like, what is the time where you could say, okay, I've been doing this for a good amount of time, it's not working out. When do you maybe pivot or transition, or what? Is it kind of a feel thing of, did I really give it my all? Or it's tough to really answer that, but do you get where I'm going?
100%. I'd say give it a year.
Okay.
In my opinion, give whatever. And again, it's like health, right? If you do it for a few days, not going to happen. You give it 30 days, cool. But if you give it a year, because the reality is, in anything new, anything that's worthwhile, you're going to have challenges. And if you just buckle under the first time things don't go your way, you're making emotional decisions. And if you make emotional decisions, you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So you got to get through those times. And so in my opinion, give it a year, play full out for an entire year. Now, my third thing I was going to say is, as you play full out, get a coach, get a mentor, have someone that it's like a golf coach, right? I'm not that good of a golfer, but I'm trying to get better. The golf coach, the instructor, they give me pointers. They see my swing outside of me. Yeah. In business,
they can't see it emotionally like you can.
Totally.
Exactly.
Right. They see it for what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And a mentor and a coach will see, you for what you're looking to do and what you tell them you want to accomplish. And so, and I see so many people that just, again, they don't get a coach. They're not a humble student. Their ego gets in the way. They're very selfish in their intentions. And it really just doesn't serve them. But if you get a coach, I think that would be huge. And I want to add a fourth one. I think as people start making decisions and things they really want, the mind is going to play tricks on you. The mind is going to, kind of push back on what you really, really want. Like, it's something called the terror barrier. It's like there's this barrier of like, you want to get over to this world of fulfillment. You want to get over this world of accomplishment. You want to go over this world to getting to, really feeling happy inside. Well, that terror barrier, that there's that invisible line is going to push you back. It's going to knock you down. It's going to test you. And it's going to really give you, all this like pressure. Do you really want this?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do what it takes? Are you willing to pay the price? And once you break through that, once you get through that invisible line, you're going to get into this world of getting this emotion of like, holy shit, it is worth it. Now, the tricky part, in my opinion, once you start accomplishing things, once you start seeing successes, is to make sure you continue to fill your mind with the things you need to keep you there. And, it's like creating momentum. It's like there's different types of momentum. There's creating momentum. There's, maintaining momentum. And there's like advanced momentum where it just kind of builds upon itself.
Yeah.
And so, but that the mind side of things, I say this a lot in the stuff that I do for my own YouTube channel and things, is the most important conversation you're going to have is the one you have with yourself. And so you got to continuously say things and serve yourself in a way that's going to help you get through those moments along the way. But you got to give it at least a year.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that reminds me so much of, you know who Brendan Burchard is by chance? Mm-hmm. He says the power plant doesn't have energy, it generates it. It's the most genius thing ever. You never really think about it that way, but it's never in the same way that you're talking about. You don't have an accomplishment. You've achieved it, but it has to be generated over time and through momentum and a number of different reasons. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
I want to get into, lastly, a little bit more particular to your industry. So if you were to give 3 tips in regards, so same type of idea of what we were just getting at in the blanket statement. Now with your expertise in your business, so let's just use it as a sales and marketing position, where you could be in leadership or you could be selling, or a number of different ways. What would be the 3 things in that industry that you would give as tips?
Frankly, they're going to be kind of similar.
Yeah.
So, the one about the mind and the mentality it takes to be successful at work, in general, again, because of rejection and other things that happen in sales, oftentimes people don't look at things very optimistically. They sometimes have a pessimistic view of what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But I would say just simply in sales, if somebody wants to be good in sales, they gotta be a student of the game. There's going to be people that are better. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare my chapter 20 to your chapter 1.
Can you differentiate those two though? Because I think some people can be conflicted when it comes to having a mentor and someone you look up to and yet still running your own race. How do you tiptoe that line?
Yeah. So I think just understanding that, it's your journey, right? Like having a mentor and having a coach or having someone that's maybe outperforming you or doing something better than you. There's a difference between being jealous and going into the conversation to learn.
Yeah.
And again, I've been both people, right? I've seen others do well in my industry and others do well in business. And I did have this sense of jealousy, this sense of, oh, well, they must be, this is the reason why, this market, this program, this opportunity. And I had to, and again, a maturity thing, right? I had to shift that emotion, that energy. But I think the key is just like knowing that, if you are going to meet with someone, and yes, if they are outperforming you, if they are doing better than you, you got to go into it the right intentions, right? And if you have the right, again, lead with the heart. If you have the right heart, you have the right thoughts on why you're there, then it can only help.
Yeah, I love it. That's going to wrap us up here for today. So I would just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing all the insights that you brought. Like I said, it's been so cool to hear all these different perspectives and different industries and different stories of why and how you've been able to make what you've made happen. And so I'm just so grateful to being able to sit here and hear your story. And again, thank you for being open, especially with some of the personal things that you share. That means a lot that you'd be willing to do that. And I think the deeper that you go, the more you're able to ultimately help people. The fact that you had the courage to share something like that, I think it could connect with a lot of people. So thank you so much for sharing that. Guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching this on any podcast platform, please rate and review, as that goes a long way. We're going to link all of Ken's links for everything that he does. If you want to dive deeper into his story and his mission. He's got tons of value to provide to you as well. So we will make sure to tag that so you can get there easy. We want to thank you also for making the time to be here and believing in the possibility that life can be better and challenging yourself to grow. We want to see you guys again here very soon, and never stop pursuing precision.